at 56.7% illicit incident. In ringgit terms, it is, I think, as approximately 4 billion in loss of government revenue.
Today we'll be presenting the result of the illicit cigarette study for Malaysia 2025. These reports highlight an issue of national importance, and I'd like everybody in the room to realize that it goes far beyond GTI or the industry interest. We have to bear in mind that illicit trade has been depriving the Malaysian state from critical revenue and resources that are needed to fund public services, national development, and the well-being of Malaysians. Equally important, and I want to spend a bit of time on the second point because it's something which is not always known, on time to time disregard. Illicit cigarettes pose a public health risk. A public health risk. Why? Because illicit products, they do not comply with any regulation, with no quality standard or control designed to protect consumers. Unlike legitimate product, for illicit product there is no oversight, no accountability, and as I said, no consumer protection. Therefore, it's not only an economic issue, it's also a matter of public responsibility. Still, I want to be positive, because you will see that the report shows positive development in fighting illicit. Effort from the authorities and from stakeholders are delivering results, and this needs to be recognized and underlined. Still, the scale of the challenge remains significant, and obviously the level of the effort should be proportional to what is at stake. We are talking about government revenue, we are talking about public health, and we are talking about the rule of the law. So, to conclude, I'd like to say that sharing the finding today, we intend to bring educative elements that will enable us to have a constructive dialogue with the authorities and to come up with stronger collective plan to fight illicit in the future. So, yeah, and let's all be aware that tackling illicit will require continued commitment, joint effort, and determination and coordination. Now, I will leave the floor to our Corporate Affairs and Communication Director, Mr. Mohamed Masli, who will be sharing the key findings of the study. And afterward, with the support of the team, I'll be delighted to answer your question. Thank you very much.
Every day, more than half of the cigarette smoke in Malaysia are untaxed and unregulated. It is a problem, and we are here to present the evidence. Let's see what is really happening and what we can do about it. But before that, let's have this frame. While we are going through this presentation, let's start to think, how much tax money is Malaysia losing? And are we making it any better? And how do you regulate a market that is out of the radar? Because these questions are the questions that matter today. There are 5 things to remember today. Number 1, it is a national problem. It is costing the government billions in lost taxes. It is putting unregulated, uninspected products in the hands of Malaysians. Number 2, yes, illicit decline under stable policy. we were making progress. And then policy decisions were made and the progress reversed. That is how fragile the situation is. Number 3, consumers are moving to cheaper options. Lower tax vape and of course illicit cigarettes. Number 4, illicit trade is becoming cross-border. So this is no longer a local problem. It is an organized network. And the supply chain is based outside Malaysia and aimed at our market. Number 5, with economic uncertainties ahead, a tax moratorium can prevent further illicit growth. And we have a window right now to stop things from getting worse. And why are we doing all this? Because in a fragile environment, policy stability matters. So, what does illicit trade look like? So you can walk into a store in some parts of Malaysia, and then you will find this. Number 1, cigarettes with fake stamps. So this is designed to fool you. You think that it's legit, but it's not. Number 2 is smuggled wines. Foreign brand or no brands with no tax stamps. In October 2025, via Act 852, the retail display ban was introduced. Then, later on, in November 2025, the tax moratorium was lifted and excise tax was increased. So what we see now, in January 2026, we saw the illicit trade jump 2.3 percentage points in 2 months. These are the consequences that we have to deal with. On the retail display ban, when visibility of legal products is reduced, you make illicit cigarettes easily available at the point of sale. Also, when affordability is disrupted, consumers naturally look for a cheaper option, and illicit is a cheaper option. So, looking forward, we need a policy that is designed with full understanding of how the market behaves. Zooming in, you can see that the market doesn't take time to react. The moment the condition change, consumer move. In September, illicit incidence was 54.3%. In November, when the excise was decreased, it was still at 54.4%, but in January, in just 2 months, it jumped up to 56.7%. What this tells us is that every time affordability is disrupted, consumers go for the more affordable alternative. And this means, unfortunately, untaxed and unregulated products. And let me give you the number that matters most. At 56.7% illicit incident, in ringgit terms, it is approximately 4 billion in loss of government revenue. Let that sink in a little bit. So this is not just an industry issue. It is a national fiscal issue. And it deserves to be treated as well. So, in my humble opinion, a national target to reduce illicit trade need to be set so that we can recover this 4 billion ringgit revenue loss. As you can see, counterfeit tax stamps are at record high levels, doubling in 3 years, from 8.7% in 2023 to 16% in January 2026. So the criminal networks are getting better. They are getting better at faking our tax stamps. They are investing money and resources into making counterfeit tax stamps. In our press conference last year, we are realizing the momentum of the fake tax stamp. We advocated for the adoption of the digital tax code to replace physical tax stamp. We are happy to note that the digital tax marking, as it is referred to, will be rolled out in 2027. We are sure that this will mitigate the risk and close the leakages. Now, I would like to share the recent bust conducted by our neighboring country, Philippines, in the island of Cebu. In this particular case, according to the Philippines media, the authorities seized an estimated of 1 billion pesos, for around 90 million ringgit, worth of illicit cigarettes in a raid conducted in Lapu-Lapu City, Cebu. The authorities there uncovered large-scale illegal cigarette production facility. But what was very concerning was that counterfeit Malaysia tax stamps were found, and the products that was manufactured was intended for export into Malaysia. What does this tell us? Number one, they are not only targeting Malaysia, they are no longer just bypassing the system, they are attempting to replicate the system. And this is just one facility. The real question is, how many more are there bound for Malaysia? And it's not just the international press covering this. Sinaharian, Focus Malaysia, and Rakyat Post also carry the same story. A factory built specifically to supply to Malaysia, and a supply chain specifically designed to defeat our system. So when the local press is reporting that criminal networks have built dedicated infrastructure outside Malaysia to target our market, counterfeiting our tax stamps, this becomes a national story. And it deserves a national level response. The economic uncertainty is increasing pressures on affordability. Because what happens outside our borders matters enormously for us. We have the Middle East conflict, rising costs, economic uncertainties, and all of these are spreading across the region and landing in Malaysian households. So in practical terms, what this means is that for the consumer, the ringgit doesn't go as far and choices are getting harder. And when this happens, they look for the cheapest option, which unfortunately in our industry lead to the growth of illicit. So maintaining affordability is not just protecting the industry, but also protecting the regulated market itself. We are providing you here a picture of the Malaysian nicotine market as it is today. You can see that vape is at 37.6%, illicit cigarettes at 32.5%, and legal cigarettes, heated tobacco, and other tobacco products at approximately 30%. What does this tell you? Only 30% of all nicotine consumed in Malaysia is fully regulated and heavily taxed. But it also means that the other 70% are either paying zero tax or paying a fraction of what a coherent tax structure should produce. Example, vape. What this actually means is that 70 cents out of every ringgit worth of nicotine spending is either generating nothing for the government or generating far less than it should. So now, there's a shift to a lower tax e-vape and illicit. Based on our current trajectory, our internal consumer behavior data forecast for 2026 is telling us that legal cigarettes will be down by 0.4%, illicit will go up by 0.2%, and vape up by 0.2% as well. Consumers are loyal to their wallets. The legal cigarette market is sharing consumers with illicit and vape. Both these movements mean less revenue and less regulatory oversight for the government. Here is why consumers keep shifting which provides a strong case for policy alignment. It is all about tax differences. We need to have tax parity to fix the price structure and minimum pricing mechanism to set the floor price. For example, a legal cigarettes are excised at 8 ringgit 40 cents per pack. But e-vape with the same amount of nicotine content is only taxed at 80 cents. So, as you recall, we are suggesting for a tax moratorium on cigarettes to stop illicit. And in the previous slide, we showed that we are sharing this market together with vape and illicit. So even with a tax moratorium on cigarettes in place, we can still align the vape excise rate. And if we do that, approximately 1.7 billion ringgit is collectible by the government every year. So, but by making vape to be at par in terms of tax, this would mean that every legal nicotine product contribute to its fair share to the Malaysian tax base. Because if the legal market is fragmented and inconsistently taxed, the winner is the illicit trade. So, conclusion. Illicit is back. Malaysia is now becoming a hotspot for regional illicit trade. And at the moment, the big winners after the excise increase are vape and illicit cigarettes. And this is because affordability is being pressured. 5 actions to sustain progress and reduce illicit trade. Number 1, we must set a national target so that we can go for the ringgit Malaysia 4 billion loss. Number 2, maintain policy stability because the economy is uncertain going forward. Number 3, align taxation and regulation across nicotine products. Number 4, on the risk of counterfeit tax stamps, expand digital tax code to all categories. And the last one is to revisit the tax moratorium for cigarettes in light of the recent rebound, but push for tax parity for vape so that the structure integrity is achieved. Thank you.
Mustaqim from Nikkei Asia. It's shown here that the illicit trade level remains high even during the tax moratorium, if I'm not mistaken. So my question is, if the tax freeze before failed to reduce smuggling, why do you believe that a renewed tax moratorium would work now to reduce the illegal?
No, actually, during the period of tax moratorium, we have improved by 0.6% year on year.
If I may, you have also to look to the trend. Before the moratorium, there was a deep increase year after year. And since the moratorium, it has been slightly, but still going down, 0.7, you said, year after year. And it's very obvious that with the price hike, now it's back to growth, actually. So there is a clear correlation to be established on this.
But the amount is still big, which is more than half of the market. There was a question there. MP5.
Hi, Faiz from The Sun. There seems to be a lot of media citations where the illicit cigarettes are smuggled from Philippines. So would you say that Philippines is the most frequent source of location for where these illicit cigarettes were smuggled from? And if so, where are the enforcement gaps in this?
You want to try the first one?
No, go.
Okay.
You have
Well,
to speak a lot to say.
what I can say is that it is not just Philippines. Okay. On enforcement, there are critical touch points that we need to look at. And we are working together with the government to manage these touch points. Number one, as it exits the country, going to the destination country. Number two, as it arrives in our shores. And number three, as it gets distributed to the shops. Yeah? So enforcement is there. And last year was a good enforcement year. We had a very strong support from the multi-agency task force. But this needs to be continuously maintained. Because as you know, this is like water, you know. It will flow elsewhere. If you stop at one place, it will still flow. And as you know, Malaysia, we have very long borders. So a combination of enforcement, that's why we're suggesting for a national target, so that all focus will be coordinated towards that figure. That's one. And the other one is to use regulations and policy to make sure that we are very clear what is illicit and what is not. At the moment, if you go and buy, say, something that is below the minimum price of cigarette, you know that at the moment the minimum price for cigarette is 12 ringgit. If you buy anything below 12 ringgit, you know that that's illicit. But you cannot say the same for vape. So, and we are sharing this market with vape and illicit. So if vape also follows a minimum vape pricing, then the whole system will be more integrated.
Sorry, I got one question. Could you provide us like some kind of a breakdown of detail on cost pressures? You talked about cost pressures. What type of cost pressures are you experiencing, and how has the price movement of legal cigarettes has been for the last few years? What percentage of price increase are you looking at given that the conflict in the Middle East? What kind of supply chain disruption are you experiencing?
That's a very good question, which is linked actually to your first question. It's true that we start seeing pressure on the supply chain, and if the situation doesn't improve, we should be expecting some inflation in the market for consumers, but also for the business, and cost of doing business is going up. And in all transparency, at one point, we might have to pass this cost to consumer. Because if we want to continue investing in Malaysia with our employee, I'm pretty proud to say that we are #1 top employer in Malaysia. We're very proud about that. To our supplier, to our trade partner, we need at one point maybe to take pricing. So to your previous point, if on top of that there is an excise tax increase, then we could end up with a huge price increase like the one we had in 2014. And if you remember, that was the beginning of the bad story in Illicit, when Illicit started flying in the market. So yes, your point is very valid. Like any other business, when we look at our costs, at one point we'll have to make a ruling whether we passed it to consumers or if we absorb. And I will not reveal any strategy today, but probably it will be a bit balanced. We'll not fully pass the cost to consumers, but we might have to take pricing. So any excise tax increase will come on top of that, and could be a disaster, honestly.
What kind of material? What kind of materials that you use in your product that's currently tightening in terms of supplies, and what pricing? Is it nicotine? Is it the tobacco? Could you brief us a bit?
Impact on the supply chain.
You want to answer this one? Or I'll take it. I'll take it? Yeah, I mean, the obvious one is transportation cost. I mean, not to say that we start having disruption in the supply chain, meaning that now our products are coming mainly from Philippines, by ships, and the journey of the ship are increasing. To avoid out of stock, time to time, we have to use air flight, which, I mean, the cost is skyrocketing. This is the first one. any non-tobacco materials that are related to natural resources, and some of them are related to that, are going up, obviously. And am I forgetting anything in terms of increased cost of doing business, Thierry?
No, I mean, logistics, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And the overall supply chain in terms of managing your inventory.
Yeah.
Because we have to put more
Yeah, it's mainly about the supply chain and the non-tobacco material that are related to this natural resources, basically. Not to say that beyond that, even local supplier, they are passing their own increased cost to us. So there is a local increased cost of doing business with our supplier and so on and so forth.
Hi, my name is Fernando from the Rap Post. I want to ask, so if vape taxes were to raise to match cigarette taxes, and presumably smokers switch back to cigarette instead of quitting, would that be a good outcome?
I think what we meant is that to have tax parity that is relevant to the segment of the product. Yeah? At the moment, it is just not balanced. It's not a level playing field. So what we are saying is that if we were only looking at cigarettes, we are seeing the results now. Okay, we increase the taxes for cigarette, we can see how illicit responded. And then we also share our research, internal research, that vape will also be benefiting for that because we share this. Okay, but the choice of whether it goes somebody smokes vape or somebody smokes cigarette is a personal choice.
Just to complement and to clarify, what we are advocating for is tax parity with the HTS, not with cigarettes, so which is 50% correct of cigarette taxation.
Hi, Dina from BFM. So you mentioned that there's fake tax stamps have been doubled this year, especially from overseas. And in 2027, there will be digital tax stamps. So how resilient is this digital tax stamps system against adaptation by these illicit networks? And how do you see this combating the current illicit trade? Any statistics on that?
With digital tax stamp, you have visibility end to end. That means you can track and you can trace your product. So that means you have more view. With physical tax stamps, you don't. You can only have a view once it is at the touch point. It's at the point of at the port or at the shop. So with view, with this kind of view, and with track and trace, you know where it goes. Okay, you know whether it is returned back from the market also. Okay, which will also benefit us and benefit the whole system. And the risk will of course be reduced. Yeah. But you know, I mean, for how long I do not know, because the fact that the illicit guys are investing a lot of money to try to replicate our physical tax stamp, I don't think they will stop at that, you know. But with the little IT that I know, it will be more difficult for you to replicate a digital tax code.
Hi again. So I have a question which I could say gathered from some of the feedbacks from a lot of smokers around me. How can you tell which tax stamp is authentic and fake? Because sometimes when there are smokers themselves that are confused, which is real, which is not, and it's even more confusing when some of those cigarettes were displayed on the public just like that. And I would say that there are some cigarettes that were displayed publicly were below 12 ringgit as the points that you mentioned before. So, yeah, maybe you can share that?
I don't know technically there is a way maybe you will explain, but Nasli already shared the trick to identify illicit product. For duty paid product, legitimate product, there is a minimum price of 12 ringgit. Whatever you buy below this price is illicit product. So even if there's a tax stamp, it's illicit product for sure. Because by regulation, you cannot sell below 12 ringgit.
So 12 ringgit has to be the trademark for it to not be an illicit cigarettes. That's it.
That's the minimum price.
That's the minimum price, yes.
That is in the Akta 852, that sets the minimum price. Sometimes it's quite difficult to differentiate between the fake tax stamp and the real tax stamp. You have to develop an acquired skill. We have our experts here. I myself sometimes get confused as well. But yeah, the 12 ringgit benchmark is a sure thing. If it's below 12 ringgit, whatever they say is illicit.
Mungkin saya nak tambah sikit untuk yang digital tax stamp yang baru.
You've talked about the loss of revenue for the government because of illicit trade, but also the industry wants tax moratorium. So I was just wondering, would the industry be able to compensate for the inevitable surge in healthcare costs? In Malaysia, for 1 ringgit collected from tobacco excise duty, RM4 4 ringgit is spent on treating smoking-related illness. So how do you track that gap?
Yeah, I mean, it's not up to us to decide, no, it's until. If I understand correctly, your question, it's about how the tax collected are reallocated, correct? Yeah. Then I would say it's not up to us to decide, it's up to the authorities to decide how they want to reallocate this revenue. Again, on tax, because this is a very important topic. There is so-called Laffer curve, which is a very famous economic concept, which has demonstrated that when there is a point when you increase tax to a high level, actually it's counterproductive, and your tax collection are going down. Honestly, with 60% illicit trade in Malaysia, I would say that probably the system is not optimum. But this is how the situation is today, and we're working with the authorities to, at minima, keep it under control and try even to lower this. Okay. But when I read in some of your newspaper that some people have a very brilliant idea to put together a tax calendar with huge excise tax increase every year, I'm sure you have heard about that, okay? And that it will prevent people from smoking. I'm sorry, but they are thinking in silo. It's like illicit is not existing. If they want, we can debate whether it's right or not, but in the specific case of Malaysia, they want to do something that will impact only 40% of the market. The only consequence of that is that you will widen the gap between legitimate cigarette and illicit cigarette, and illicit cigarette will become 80 or 90% of the market. And to your point, is it good for government revenue? For sure not, it will collapse. Is it good for public health? I mean, as I was insisting, there is zero control on the quality of illicit product. So, if I have to make a punchline, sorry for that, I'm time to time wondering whether anti-tobacco, they're not pro-illicit product when they're proposing something like that, because it's totally out of the moon.
Okay, in Singapore, the cigarettes are even more expensive than Malaysia. And how do the Singaporean authorities combat illicit cigarettes?
Okay, Singapore is Singapore. They even make us flush the toilets or you get fined. But it's a relatively small market with very strong enforcement. And by increasing the price, it basically limits affordability. Yeah. So I think that is an effective way, enforcement and affordability, for you to be able to control nicotine consumption. But then again, there's Johor Bahru. So they can always go to Johor Bahru and indulge in it. Can we replicate it? It's difficult because our borders are different. Okay, our enforcement are good, but we have a bigger
Land area.
area to control. And then the short answer is that it is not something that can be replicated here. But the principes are correct. Yeah? But if enforcement is not there, any principes or any policy also will not. I hope that answer your questions.
So, I have another question. What cigarette brands are normally smuggled from Philippines or from Indonesia into Malaysia?
There's Boston.
Johnny Blend.
That's what we know of.
So only one type.
Slamat, you wanna say something? Oh, no.
So other brands like Dunhill, what else? I don't smoke Winston, for example. They are all genuine cigarettes in Malaysia.
We have to ask the expert to answer.
Sebenarnya kami dah kalau nak if you want to mention brand names, so we have to check our legal, whether is it allowed for us to say that. But what we can do is that we can share with you, the Nielsen's report that actually mentioned about the names, that they found in the street where through our litter collection. So based on that, we have a few names that we can mention to you through to the reports. So we can share with you, probably after the session. Yeah, thank you very much.
But I do understand that Winston is one of the one of the cigarettes by JTI. So do you face of any problem with Winston cigarettes?
Being counterfeit.
Illicit counterfeit.
It's not the main problem, correct?
It's not a main problem. Okay.
It's not
That means something else. That means the authorities can target instead of the branded one.
Yeah.
Perhaps they can go for those unbranded one. At least it will reduce their workload.
Probably, yeah.
That means the problem is the authorities. Okay, I think I understand.
I agree.
Just want to clarify, when you say illicit, is it fake or duty not paid?
There are three categories just now. Okay. One is with a fake tax stamp. So it looks like an original. Yeah. But the tax stamp is counterfeit. So that's one question. The other one is unbranded. Foreign brand is just smuggled in without any taxes. That's it.
What I meant was the product itself. Is it fake product? Genuine tobacco, nicotine?
I don't know. I have not smoked illicit product, but
This is the issue I was mentioning. Minister of Health, I put some ceiling in terms of nicotine and tar, for instance, and they believe it's good to protect consumer health. Okay. Illicit product, they don't respect this ceiling. For instance, for tar, the maximum in this market is 10, correct? We see some illicit product going up to 12, 14. So I'm back to my point on the risk for public health. I mean, it's a serious one.
The other point is, let's say,
And sorry, it's not a big phenomenon here, and actually it's probably in the favor of Malaysia. Then you have duty-paid product from another market that could be entering the country. And in our case, we are talking about Johor and Malaysia. It's duty-paid Malaysian product that sometimes are brought back to Malaysia. Okay. This is a different category, and it's not illicit.
the other point is, just now you mentioned, if it's illicit, they sell lower. So if I'm a trader, even though illicit, I sell the same price, I make more profit. So how are you going to determine?
we have no control what they want to sell and how much they want to sell. Yeah. So, but I think with the digital tax stamp, I think this detail can be easily solved.
Yeah, and then also the competitions within the illicits, because they are selling at 650, and if today you want to position yourself as illicit to 12 ringgit and making more profit, and then as you know, consumer who is buying illicit at such a lower price, what is the point of a counterfeiters or an illicit seller to sell at 12 ringgit? You will not be making any profit from there, because why? Because you are not competitive between 12 ringgit and 650.
comparatively, other products like alcohol, plenty in the market, but they are fake beers. But somehow the sales is very good. So I just.
Victoria. So you mentioned that the illicit trade has gone up by more than half, right? Could you perhaps mention like what are the gaps that currently exist in Malaysia's enforcement framework? Is it because we lack the digital stamp codes framework?
Okay, understand. Yeah. So the question is, what do we think are the gaps in enforcement?
Yes.
What I can tell you is that all the enforcement efforts that we do here in Malaysia is the same elsewhere in the world as well. The issue is that the effectiveness of this, it depends on your geography. It also depends on the demand. So if you are in a country where people are well versed on the dangers of illicit cigarettes, then the demand will be low. Then enforcement on illicit will be easier. Yeah, but if Malaysia is an affordability market, it's all about affordability. That's why we were trying to present this and anchor this. And anything that relates with affordability, that precious affordability, will change consumer behavior. And unfortunately, when it comes to cigarette, the price difference is very big between illicit and legal cigarettes.
I'll share with you my mantra. Where there is a will, there is a way. And as I was saying in my introduction, it's important to acknowledge all the efforts that have been done so far. What I was trying to say, and I will make it even more clear, where the effort up to the level of the challenge, maybe we can go further in terms of effort. So again, building on the success that has been obtained should give further willingness to the authorities and all stakeholders to go beyond what has been done today.
One factor that was not mentioned perhaps could be the enforcement, the penalties. In Malaysia, under the Customs Act or the tobacco regulations, smugglers face up to 20,000 ringgit penalty. That's very low compared to, you mentioned Singapore. In Singapore, where vape is illegal, even the user faces up to 10,000 Singapore dollars penalty, and smugglers face up to 300,000 Singapore dollars penalty. And Australia, due to their very high tax rates and high prices, where they also face a huge illicit issue, the government is introducing proposed stiffer penalties. Not just penalties, but also power to seize assets, expand the surveillance authority, and power to check the full supply chain. So maybe one of the issues can be no penalties, and the smugglers, they do their cost and benefit analysis, and they say, oh, maybe the risk is not so high.
Is that a genuine, productive solution, in your opinion?
We're not here to give solutions. I think the choice is the government's choice. But we think nicotine products should be regulated.
Yeah, our position is at least, as we discussed, taxation should be equalized with the HTS. And equally important, and here we are back to a health issue concern, the category should be at least much more regulated. If you look at the market at the moment, you have a vape product of very high quality and very high standard, honestly, and there is nothing to be said about this product. But the segment is a jungle. On the other side, you have product with very low quality. Honestly, I'm a father. I will make sure my kids never go to this product. It's just shitty product. So again, we need more regulation at least, higher taxation, and a bigger oversight at minimum.